Good morning. I'm Bill Miles with the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce, and we're delighted to have you with us today. We have some via Zoom, others watching on the Beaufort County channel, as well as some watching on Facebook Live. So again, we're most appreciative of you joining us today. I don't know about you, but I think spring is indeed on the way. It's certainly in the air, and the weather's been wonderful. And hopefully many of you got a chance to get out and enjoy the Hilton Head Island Seafood Festival last weekend. And what a great event it was. And a special shout out to Andrew Carmines and the board of directors at the Hilton Head Island Seafood Festival. Several of the events were sold out, and I think you'll see that's going to be a theme as we continue this discussion today when we get to the RBC Heritage. So you don't want to miss that. Also want to mention that the Darius Rucker Intercollegiate Golf Tournament is taking place at Long Cove today. It's the final round. It's the 10th annual Darius Rucker Tournament, and he's always so kind and with his time, and not only to sponsor it, but also provides a concert each year for the players. And so it's free to watch. You can go to Long Cove today and watch the final round, or if you'd rather watch it on TV, it will be live on the Golf Channel. And I say that just to also let you know that this is the first time actually, that women's golf has been broadcast live on the Golf Channel other than their national championships. So we're delighted to have the Golf Channel on the island at Long Cove and some terrific women's golfers. Well, we've got a lot to talk about today, and we're going to talk everything from the Ukraine to real estate, pandemic, and the RBC Heritage. What we do today is just jump right into it, talking about the Ukraine. And it has a major impact on not only in our nation, but right here for us in the Low Country. And last week, I was fortunate enough to sit on 2 calls with our first speaker today. And I learned so much. He was so informative and knowledgeable. I asked him that day if he would join us for today's morning's Power Hour, and he was kind enough to say so, to agree to do so. John Murphy was named to Washington's most influential list of movers and shakers in Washington, D.C. He's on the board of the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, and he's the Senior Vice President for International Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. John plays a key role in the advocacy of business before Congress, foreign governments, and the World Trade Organization. John, welcome. We appreciate you being with us today, and we know that your time is precious and it means a lot to us.
Bill, thanks very much. It's great to join you here this morning, and I only wish it was in person. It's been a little too long since I've been down to your neck of the woods, but I'll always enjoy a visit. A pleasure to join you all this morning and talk a little bit about the war in Ukraine, the Russian invasion, and what it means for us in the United States. I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say that our hearts go out to the Ukrainian people and in their suffering. Russia's invasion is completely unwarranted, and it's remarkable to see the free world rallying to support Ukraine. I'm going to focus my comments here on the economic side of things and the sanctions and so forth that the United States is imposing. But I think it's useful to take a step back first, because we're entering into all of this economic tension with Russia, and just reflect on, is Russia really a big deal in the world economy? Because in some ways it's not. Russia represents about 1% of global GDP. It's about 1.5% of global trade. U.S. trade directly with Russia is very limited. It's maybe our 30th largest trading partner. Having said that, though, there are a number of areas where Russia matters to the United States economically. As I think many of you know, it's a major producer of oil and gas. In some recent years, it's been the largest producer in the world. I think most recently, the United States has topped Russia. And so what Russia does on energy markets has global implications. It can affect the price of gasoline at the pump here. It certainly affects the price of natural gas in Europe, which gets maybe 40% of its natural gas for heating homes and industry from Russia. There's other specific commodities where Russia matters a lot too. It's the world's largest wheat producer. We're seeing wheat prices surge. Ukraine is also a top producer, so the interruption there is going to drive up wheat prices, and that's going to hurt developing countries in particular. But other products like titanium The aerospace sector, which I know is important in South Carolina, imports a lot of titanium from Russia. I've heard from big companies in that sector that they're okay in the short term, but something to keep an eye on. Palladium is used in catalytic converters for the auto sector. Russia is the major source of that metal as well. Aluminum, nickel, Russia is the biggest exporter of fertilizer in the world. So there are these specific commodities where Russia matters. Now, what the United States and our allies have done is issue a set of sanctions on Russia that are really very powerful. These are not the economic sanctions we've seen in the past. You think about sanctions on Cuba, sanctions on Iran. These are novel, unprecedented, and they come in three categories, and I'll walk through them. It's financial sanctions, there's export controls, and finally there's the sanctions on Russian oligarchs. So first, the financial sanctions. What we saw on Sunday and executed on Monday was really the big one, the nuclear bomb of sanctions, which is sanctions imposed on Russia's central bank. What these did is cut off Russia from its foreign exchange reserves, from most of them. Russia had, in some ways, you can see, been preparing for this day by building up a foreign exchange war chest of $600 billion, really very large for the size of their economy. But that's not paper dollar bills sitting in a vault in Moscow. Those are, digits in Western banks and Western central banks for the most part. So what the United States has done, and what I think Putin didn't count on, is Russia no longer has access to most of that. In addition, the US and our allies in Europe and some other countries around the world, such as Japan, have put major blocking sanctions on Russian banks. Banks representing about 80% of the Russian banking system by assets have been subjected to these blocking sanctions. That basically means that folks in the outside world, companies, can't really engage with them, can't transfer money back and forth. The exception is energy. The Europeans and the US as well have not sanctioned transactions relating to energy. And that's something that's still under consideration. And yet, I would say that the overall impact of the sanctions we've seen so far is very powerful. The Russian economy came to a screeching halt on Monday as these kicked in. There were runs on banks. Banks were closed. People had very long lines at ATMs. People were not able to get cash. Payment systems were not operative. Just to illustrate, the subway system in Moscow, a lot of people, pay for it, using their smartphone, using Apple Pay or something like that, and none of that was working. So everybody had to go get cash and cards to ride the subway to work or what have you. And that's only going to spread in the days ahead. So for American companies that have had some investments in Russia over the years, for many of them, this means that they're not able to continue functioning. And what we've seen quite a lot of fallout there. Another kind of sanction that we see is the second bucket is export controls. And the United States is using a tool here called the Foreign Direct Product Rule. Some of you probably remember that the Trump administration used this tool on Huawei, which is large Chinese telecommunications equipment manufacturer. And it was used to devastating effect. Huawei's revenue by last year had fallen by 30%. And what it does is it bans the sale to Huawei of American-made equipment, such as semiconductors or other technology products. What's being done here is that this is being applied to a whole country, in essence. So it's not just American-made tech products that can't be sold to Russia. It's anything made with American technology. So imagine a Korean-made laptop, or if it's assembled in China, say, if it has American semiconductors in it, if it has American software, if it's made on machinery or capital equipment that was made in the United States, it cannot be sold to Russia. And it's estimated this will cut off half of all of the tech exports to Russia. The impact of this for American companies is really, this is a compliance question that I know a lot of tech companies are looking at. Companies need to understand, even if you don't think of yourself as an exporter to Russia, you may be producing products that wind up in another product and that are later shipped to Russia. This is the kind of question, the kind of introspection that we see companies engaging in right now. Finally, there's the sanctions on Russian oligarchs. Some people say that this is a very big deal. Russian billionaires who have their assets in the West, have real estate in London or New York, yachts in Monaco, maybe one of these fellows owns the Chelsea Football Club in London. All of these are in the crosshairs. I think it's not yet clear how influential this will be over Russia, but these individuals have always enjoyed traveling to the West where they own property, send their kids to school, they vacation, and it appears that the welcome mat is no longer out for them. So what are we seeing here in the real world in terms of the impact on American companies? Many American companies are simply looking at these sanctions and they're leaving the Russian market. For instance, the largest foreign investor in Moscow was BP, the big British headquartered oil company. They walked away from a $25 billion investment in Russia. We're seeing Shell, Exxon exit the country. Ford is exiting a joint venture that they've had for many years there. BMW has stopped manufacturing in Russia and selling there. Most foreign auto companies are no longer exporting to Russia. For many of them, this isn't that big a deal, but for some of them, as I've mentioned, Russia maybe is a critical source for inputs such as metals. But one thing that I think we're seeing is almost a little bit of over-compliance from companies. These are very complex sanctions. Nobody wants to run afoul of them. And so companies are not going to take any chances. UPS and FedEx, for instance, have just halted all shipments to Russia because it's too complicated to figure out what might be in those boxes that is compliant and what might not be. So you can understand the prudence behind that in these circumstances. So that's my overview. I know we're all following the situation there, and our hearts go out to the Ukrainian people, but happy to take any quick questions, Bill, if there's time.
Okay, John, thank you. Yes, we do have some questions, and the first one's coming from Tom, and Tom is asking, what is Russia's break-even price per barrel of oil?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I'm struck at a piece in the Wall Street Journal today that I recommend. There's been there's really one global oil market, and it's long been I've always heard that if one country stops buying, say, Russian oil, that others will simply buy it instead, and it's all the same. So if Canada banned the import of Russian oil, well, the Chinese will just buy it, right? Apparently, it's more complicated than that, and we're seeing some what you might call over-compliance, as the word I just used. Some American refineries are refusing to buy Russian oil. There's not an impediment to them doing so, but you can understand the calculus here, why they might not want to do that. And what this is doing is it's pushing down the price of Russia's heavy crude. There's like a separate benchmark for Urals Russian crude, and so that's selling at a steep discount in global markets. So that's happening not because of sanctions. It's happening. It's the market doing that to them. And so score one for the market, I guess.
All right, thank you for that. And Mary is asking, how long can Russia sustain these sanctions?
Well, that's a good question. These sanctions are really pretty devastating for the Russian financial system. And what that means for the man on the street is the value of their savings is way down. Their ability to purchase foreign currency has disappeared. Many consumer goods will no longer be available. For instance, Apple has announced that they're no longer going to sell products in Russia, even though they're not, these are consumer goods. They're not banned in the same way as a lot of other tech products. But nonetheless, Apple is making that decision, and many other companies are doing this sort of thing as well. So for the average Russian, these are going to be hard times. The question is, to what degree does Putin care about that? And I'm a trade guy at a trade association in DC. I don't have a window into his thinking, and he appears to be quite isolated. But I think there is hope that this pressure will have some impact on him, and sooner rather than later, given the dire situation in Ukraine.
Okay, a few more questions for you, but the next one is a statement that they sent in, and someone said, "Gosh, he's good." So I wanted to share that with you as well. Raymond is asking, are there any economic sanctions left to put on Russia?
So the one that's left out there, of course, is energy. And this is a real catch-22. And, the United States government, we all see the price of gas has gone up a lot. That's painful. We don't want that to go further, but that's the kind of thing that's in play here. And any of that applies to the United States applies doubly to Europe. They're already paying a whole lot more for natural gas. None of it's been cut off. The Russian natural gas producers are continuing to provide it to their European customers. But we are seeing more calls for this. In fact, Senator Lindsey Graham has been quite outspoken that we should sanction energy from Russia. And the Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian ambassador, who, if you watched the State of the Union last night, she was a special guest there. She has been calling for this as well. So who knows, we may see movement in that direction, sanctions on energy.
Jim is asking, has this level of economic sanctioning ever been levied against a country?
It's a good question. Mostly the answer is no, but to some degree on Iran. I think that's the only country that's ever been hit with these central bank sanctions. And the Iranian, I'm talking about back in the Obama administration, this was done, and it was really quite devastating. And that led to moves by the Iranian government for a time to shutter their nuclear weapon development program. So, but this has never been done to a large economy like Russia, which, as I said, it's the 12th largest in the world, but it's only 1% of the global economy. So we've never seen a big economy like that basically cut off from the rest of the world. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, two final questions for you. The first one is asking, are you surprised Russia hasn't utilized cyber warfare more?
I think we are surprised that I'm not a military expert, but like probably many of you, I'm following this very closely online. It's fascinating. There's all kinds of open source intelligence where you can see the movements of troops and strikes, and the Russians have not engaged in cyber warfare in Ukraine as much as thought. They haven't. Their air force has been largely ineffective. There has not been cyber attacks on the West either. That's a very dangerous thing to do, and I think the Russians understand that. A cyber attack on the United States could be viewed as an act of war. Right now, the United States and Russia are not at war, and I think the administration and the Congress want to keep it that way. That could be very dangerous. The world's two leading nuclear powers. But cyber warfare could potentially cross that line, and I think that's why you're not seeing it, at least, and surprisingly only seeing it in a limited way in Ukraine.
All right, the final question's coming from Chris, and Chris is asking, how long can Russia sustain these type of sanctions?
I think there's, to my earlier comment, I think the Russian people are going to be suffering quite quickly. It's a different question, how long can Putin withstand it? he's spending a lot of time in a bunker in the Ural Mountains, apparently. I don't know. I think that in a week or two, we will see just how prostrate the Russian economy is. It's already reeling. The banks are all closed. It's unclear that they'll be able to open. The ruble has, lost well over half its value. So we'll see.
John, you've been terrific, and thank you so much for taking your time today. I'm sure our listeners have enjoyed it, and we'll be sharing it with many others. And keep up the good work, and we appreciate you and the United States Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to be with you, and hope to be with you all in person in the not too distant future. Thank you.
All right. That was John Murphy, and what an asset he is for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. While the worst of COVID hopefully is behind us, there's still questions to be answered about the future of vaccines and other information as we move through the pandemic. And here to once again provide us the latest information is Dr. Jane Kelly, an epidemiologist with DHEC. Dr. Kelly, good morning. Let's try your volume one time.
There we go. How about that?
There we are. Good morning.
All right. Well, good morning, and thank you for inviting me yet again. Hang on, I'm going to share my screen. There we go. I do have some good news, and as always, delivering it with a bit of caution. But let me tell you about the latest statistics, some changes and recommendations from CDC, and some changes and recommendations and policies with DHEC. Here is our epidemiological curve, and as you can see, following that green line, which is a moving average 7-day count of new cases of COVID-19 in South Carolina, and we have had 7 consecutive weeks of decreasing new cases. Now, I'd take that with a little bit of grain of salt, because what this does not capture are people who do at-home tests. So if this was an at-home test, it is not reported to us, and so we don't have that information. But this does capture, for example, tests done by the school nurse on a child in school who has symptoms or is involved in routine testing or tests to stay. Here we've got our data from the vaccine dashboard that 54.2% of people in South Carolina ages 5 and up have completed vaccination. They've had at least 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna or the Janssen, followed by an additional dose of another vaccine. I was just looking up the rate for the US overall, because South Carolina is lower in terms of our vaccination status than the US overall, especially when we look at older adults. So for example, in the US overall, people ages 50 to 64, 80% of them are fully vaccinated, ages 65 to 74, more than 90%, and ages 75 and up, more than 85%. I'm sorry, I didn't have time to get those specific details for South Carolina, but we're a little bit less, basically, in each one of those categories. We have the most vulnerable people, the people who are most at risk for severe disease, vaccinated. And though Omicron is concerning because it spreads more easily, it does not appear to cause more severe disease, and vaccine is still effective against preventing severe disease. And I also want to talk about the people who may or may not have been vaccinated, but who had Omicron. So for example, I think on previous calls, I've talked about if you had COVID-19, but you had the Delta variant or you had another variant earlier in the pandemic, you might not have protection against Omicron. But what about if you had Omicron? Will that protect you against this new variant that is emerging called BA2? BA2 is similar to Omicron. It's got a lot of the same mutations as Omicron, but it's got a number of additional mutations. The good news is that if you had Omicron infection, there is high protection against reinfection with BA2. We've only had a few cases of BA2 reported in South Carolina, and really just a handful nationwide, but I know there's been concern that, oh no, here comes yet another variant, we're going to have another surge. Not necessarily. Vaccine is highly effective against BA2, and Omicron prior infection is effective against BA2. Of course, the best protection would be if you were infected, you can increase your protection by also getting vaccinated. Let's talk about CDC guidance change, and DHEC is adopting these guidance changes as well. CDC is no longer recommending universal case investigation contact tracing. And what do I mean by that? No longer recommending that every single case gets a phone call and a list of their contacts and trying to contact those people and give them advice on what to do. They do prioritize. It's not doing away with contact investigation completely. It is prioritizing groups or settings with increased risk, for example, long-term care facilities, or outbreaks in schools, or outbreaks in correctional facilities. Groups that might have been exposed in the previous 5 days certainly will still do case investigation and contact tracing. But why the change? Really, what we've been doing is unsustainable. You may have personally experienced this, that during the Omicron surge, we couldn't keep up. Nobody could keep up with doing the case investigation and contact tracing of everyone because there were just too many numbers. And, this is a resource issue. While we have been putting so many resources, not just in South Carolina, but nationally into COVID, other things that public health normally does have fallen by the wayside. We've had increases in STDs. There have been drops in the number of people with HIV taking not number of people on HIV, but the people who are at risk for HIV. There's been a decrease in services to them. So the shift going on here is a focus on public education, encouraging people, if you test positive, isolate and inform your close contacts. And I've got the links to the information on these slides. So when I send you the slides, you can link if you want to read more, any of these blue underlines. Their advice about quarantine and getting tested and masks, travel precautions, etc. We are increasing our focus on COVID-19 vaccinations. There are other proven prevention strategies, such as wearing masks. We are not completely tossing masks out the window. Certainly the restrictions around masking and the recommendations have eased, but easing doesn't mean that they are completely thrown out the window. There's certainly situations in which we would recommend people wear a mask in a crowded indoor setting. CDC has also changed some of their recommendations for what measures should we monitor. And I took this slide directly from a February 25th, the ACIP meeting discussing these community levels and other prevention strategy changes. So if you want to learn more, you can click on that link, go to the transcript, or you can see the recording. You can see all of their slides. I'm not going to show all of their slides. It would take too much time, but I'm going to show a few of them to show what the changes have been. This is what CDC used to recommend when we would talk about community transmission levels. Are they high, moderate, low? And for a long time, for a while, there were hardly any counties in the entire country that weren't at substantial or high transmission. And certainly that was true for South Carolina. This indicator helped guide decisions for businesses, employers, schools about prevention measures. It was first implemented in September 2020, which seems like a long time ago, and it looked at two particular measures: number of new cases per 100,000 people in the previous 7 days, and the percent positivity. CDC has changed their recommendation. So this is what our old community transmission map looks like, in terms of high or substantial transmission. This is still on our DHEC website right now. We are working to change this. Hopefully we will get this changed this week, but that's what it used to look like for community transmission. Looks like it's substantial or high everywhere, even though we know that with Omicron, the number of cases drastically decreasing, and finally hospitalizations and deaths are coming down. So why is CDC recommending this shift, and why is DHEC taking this shift? Because we need to look at what are the most relevant measures. You know, do we care about new cases of people getting the sniffles? Do we care that much about, you know, new breakthrough infections if they don't lead to severe disease? The most important thing is hospitalizations, severe disease, and death. So what we're shifting to is looking at these other measures. We know right now we have high levels of population immunity. In South Carolina, we only have 54% of people fully vaccinated, but we've also had a lot of people who have had Omicron infection, and we know that they have some immunity on the basis of that. We also know that boosters do what they're supposed to do, give you an increase in your immunity. So we want to focus on the most important thing, and that is preventing severe disease, minimizing burden on our healthcare system, and protecting the most vulnerable. So the three new things you're going to be looking at, still looking at new cases per 100,000, but also focusing not so much on that percent positive business, because it's becoming increasingly inaccurate as people are testing at home, but rather look at hospitalizations per 100,000, and this is by county, and the percent of staffed inpatient beds occupied by COVID-19. So a shift from the old indicators to these new ones. And this is again from CDC. I didn't go into the science of how they chose these metrics, but if you want to know more, you can go to that link. They've got an extensive explanation. So what does that mean for the country as a whole? We still have a lot of places high, but we have also a number of places that are medium or low. In fact, if you go by population, 70% of the people in the United States live in a county that is either at low or medium community transmission, community levels. Where are we in South Carolina? You can see Beaufort County, community level is low. A number of other places in the state are still at high, but we are trending downward quickly. What are the prevention measures you should take? If you live in a county that is low, it's recommended you get vaccinated, get tested if you have symptoms. People can always wear a mask. People can always choose. And certainly if you, as an individual, are at increased risk because you're older or you have a medical condition, you can always choose to mask, but you can use these recommendations to make local decisions. If you're in a county at medium risk, then we've got more higher recommendations, more support for wearing a mask. And if you're high, it's still a recommended, there's no mask mandate, but it's highly recommended that you mask indoors. There are a number of changes in school guidance, but at this point, I'm going to ask Bill, I know time is short and I didn't see the agenda, whether you've got other speakers. Do you want me to go through this changes in school guidance, or should I stop here to take questions?
Dr. Kelly, thank you. And I think this is a good place to stop and have a few questions so we have time.
And I can certainly send you the slides so that people will have that information.
Great, that'll be very helpful. Thank you. Our first question is coming from Art, and Art is asking, where is the best source of information for us to make daily decisions on masking, attending gatherings, and other things?
Right now, I'd have to say it's the CDC website, and I've included that link. We are updating our DHEC website, but there's a lot happening fast, and we probably won't have it updated until the end of this week.
All right, Debbie is asking, do you envision we will be doing an annual COVID vaccine just like we do for the flu and pneumonia?
Perhaps, that's hard to say. Flu is a little bit different. Flu, it's actually not a booster each year. Every year, the flu is a different virus. In fact, sometimes there are several flu viruses that are circulating. That's why you need a new flu vaccine every year. COVID, it's tricky, it's hard to say. The issue is whether new variants will continue to emerge. This virus seems to mutate quickly. On the other hand, our current boosters are very effective against these the new Omicron and BA2. So it might be that we don't need an annual vaccine. It's really hard to tell. It's going to depend upon if a new variant emerges and our vaccines need to be changed. And it will also depend upon waning immunity. So sorry that I can't tell you that as yet.
All right, next question is coming from Rose, and Rose is asking, how did flu rates this winter compare to last?
Interesting. Flu started out slowly with mild, small numbers, and then we went up to high numbers for a little while, and we're back down to moderate to low levels. So I don't know whether that's a function of people not getting tested, or people still wearing masks during the Omicron surge, or because I don't think our vaccination rates really went up. Remember, we're not done quite with flu yet. Flu could still come back again as people unmask, but we had certainly more than last year, but not as much as the years before.
All right, Dr. Kelly, our last question is coming from Molly, and Molly is asking, are we almost back to pre-pandemic normal, or will we be soon?
It's tough. Like Yogi Berra says, it's hard to make predictions, especially about the future. But that is certainly the direction in which we are going right now, that we're returning to what I would call a new normal, that COVID is still there, and COVID can still cause severe disease. So that's why we are still highly recommending people get vaccinated, because vaccine will keep you out of the hospital, out of the morgue. But it does look like we are headed that way. We're still a little bit worried about what might happen this summer as people travel more, but it does look like we are headed in a good direction.
Dr. Kelly, thank you for joining us again today. And as always, her slides will be available, and we're happy to share those with you. Always a wealth of information, and thanks so much for being with us, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you.
All right. Hilton Head Island was just named last week by Realtor.com as the 4th top luxury market in the country right now. That's a pretty big honor. And we're fortunate to have with us today to give us a glimpse of that is Gene Beck, and Gene's the CEO of the Hilton Head Area Association of Realtors. Gene, good to see you, and share all the good real estate news with us.
All the good real estate news. Okay. Well, it's kind of a mix, I think, a little bit of the real estate news. So let's start with this about the real estate news. A career in real estate. What about that? This market has changed and shifted so much that there's the big rethink or the big resignation that we're talked about over COVID-19. People have rethought about their career and their lifestyle, and not just moving, but what are they doing for a living? And Google just announced this last month that real estate was the top career search for job searches in the country. So a lot of people looking at real estate as a career as they start to see this market, how it's moved so much. And that's pretty much so secular. Every time we have a shift, we seem to see more people come into real estate. Currently, right now, our association has 1,551 Realtor members who are serving throughout Beaufort County and Jasper County. For the most part, our membership service is south of the Broad, and then certainly out to southern Jasper County with Hardyville as well. So a lot of people coming in. We've seen a big increase in realtors in our association this past 2 years as people have shifted from a career. As far as the real estate market, though, you can be a salesman, but if you have nothing to sell, that can be very difficult. And that's kind of where we are right now. Our inventory is at historical lows, where we have very limited number of properties for sale, but still a great buyer demand, right? People are still interested in coming here and buying. So we've got our realtors working really hard. And let me give you some thoughts on that about if you're out there trying to buy real estate and what that means for you. So right now, the conditions are still continue to be multiple offers. So you have to be in a position to move. You've got to be able to, and I don't mean physically move meaning signing that contract. You've got to be in a position where you either have cash. A lot of contingencies are being waived at this market right now. You've got to be able to show your earnest money, your deposit, that you're true in your position to buy that property. It's critical right now when you're working with a realtor that you talk about your strategies. What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? And what's your urgency? And most importantly, set your expectations, because there's a lot of people out there that are trying multiple times for properties over and over and are feeling disappointed because they're not getting them. There's some people, I just talked to a friend of mine who was up in the Charleston area. She put 16 offers in before finally getting a property. So you know that that market is going to, your likelihood of getting something could be very low. I had another realtor tell me this past week that he put in over 5 offers for 5 different clients, and none of them got that contract. So, and that's a well-experienced realtor. So buyers have to be prepared, and be prepared emotionally that they may not be the one getting that property, but cash continues to be king. And it's not only just the cash, but it's that contingency waivers and those earnest money deposits that are important. Be mindful though, those contingency waivers do not mean that you cannot inspect a property. We certainly encourage anyone when they're purchasing a property that they would go and get it inspected. You may not get the repairs that you would like to have done if anything should be found, but realize that it's always certainly important for you to do your due diligence as well when you're purchasing a property, and consider getting that home inspection. So what about the seller? What should the seller expect in this market? People kind of think, oh, the market's so great, my house will sell in no time and I'll be off the market before I know it. Well, yes, but maybe. Every property is different. Their conditions are different inside properties. What year is your roof? What year is your kitchen? How much yard do you have? All those things can help to price a property. But that's where I can't tell you how a realtor can help you in that. So the data is changing so fast because the market is moving quickly. And that's where a realtor has all that data through the multiple listing service with their membership to the MLS, and why the MLS, multiple listing service in our country, is so important for that data and that cooperation that realtors have in sharing. So it's real. So having a realtor by your side, not only for your pricing strategy, but for the strategy that you're going to use when you get those multiple offers. Some people are getting 5, 10, 15 offers on a property, and having a realtor behind you, helping you to understand all those contracts and those contingencies and what's being offered is vital to you to make an informed decision as well. Also want to make sure, again, that emotional part of it, you got to be prepared. Some properties are showing 30 or 40 times in 2 or 3 days. So you might want to have to go find yourself a room at the West End or over at the Sonesta or one of our properties. Spend a couple of days out of your house and let all those realtors show the property, so you can get the best offer that will satisfy your goals as well. So a lot moving parts on that. So let's talk about something else that's kind of fun. What are people looking for now? So we talked about the Great Resignation, and we talked about people changing their lifestyle. And all through COVID, what did people want? They wanted outside areas. That's real important. I had one realtor tell me the other day, every client I have wants either a pool or they want be near water. So people are looking for that, serene view, that outside area where they can entertain and be a part of nature, which is perfect for Hilton Head in our low country, right? With our environment. They also want properties that, of course, have home offices, right? We got that trend of people working from home. So home offices still are big. Also kitchens. Everybody loves a big kitchen. That's always the important gathering space. But here's something that I just read, a new trend that they're finding nationwide. People want home bars. They're looking for places where they can set up a bar in their house, whether it be a traditional bar with 5 or 6 stools, or it be an area where they can set up remember years ago when we had all those properties with those small sinks in them and it had the bar areas, and then we ripped them all out the last few years. It looks like that trend's coming back again. So bar areas are finding to be a new trend in real estate as well. So like you said, Bill, Hilton Head was just recognized as one of the top luxury markets by Realtor.com. But what that means really is they took, let's just see what they took. They took the top 1%, what they consider a luxury market, which is over 5.5 million, and ranked those by unique visits and ranked them how fast they sold. So you can see our market is really certainly trending in the nationwide in our industry as well. But let's go back and talk about those historical lows, because let's get a perspective of what that means, especially when we talk about what's moving quickly. You're going to see our market reports coming down. You're going to see our closed sales coming way down. Don't think that means that someone's not buying. It means that people, there's just not that product to sell. And let me give you an example. So for 2022, January of last month, our market reports came out that our closed sales were down by 19.6% compared to January of 21. But for inventory from January of 22 compared to 21, we were down 53.8%. So you can see our inventory continues to go down. And lots of times people ask me, well, what's a good market? What's a steady market? So we look at 6 months. 6 months inventory is about steady. And what does that mean for our area? What are our market numbers on that? So in 2019, in January of 2019, we had about a 5-month supply of inventory. So that's a pretty good market. That's a steady market. That was a good year for real estate. And in 2019, we had about 2,200 listings in the multiple listing service. So 2,262 to be exact. Yesterday, when I looked, there are 279 properties on the market. So you can see we have less than a month. We probably have a couple of weeks worth of inventory right now. So inventory is tight. You need a realtor with you by your side, whether you're selling or whether you are buying, because the market is so busy and a lot of emotions and kind of tricky at this time. So I encourage anyone to get that realtor with you. I think you'll be glad you did. What do we see in the future of this? That kind of remains to be seen. I'll go back to Dr. Kelly's, what she quoted with Yogi Bear, I think she said, I can't predict the future. So let's see where we go from here. And we certainly have our friends over in Hardyville that are building a lot of development out there, and that's a good thing. But not enough inventory can keep up because we're still struggling with those supply demands as well. So I think that's about it, Bill. Is there any questions? I'd be happy to try to answer.
All right, Jean, thank you. And did you ever dream of having a conversation like you just had, a presentation with those numbers, those facts and stats?
No, it's funny. I took this job in 2008. So the Association of Realtors in 2008, its peak of membership was at 1,370 in 2007. Then I came in, it was about 1,200. And then the market just tanked and it went to about 840. And we've only about 2010, and then we've been trending back upwards. So we know it's secular, but that inventory of properties has never been like this. And it's not just us, it's all over the country.
And Jean, that inventory question is one of our questions that we have for you today from Molly. And Molly's asking, how many homes are there for sale right now on Hilton Head Island?
Oh, gosh, I don't know that number right off the market, but of 279, I would say not a lot. I didn't pull those specific numbers, but anyone can go to our website, hhrealtor.com. Our market reports are open for anyone to see. You're more than welcome to. If you're looking more for a statewide report, you can go to southcarolinarealtors.org. So that's screaltors.org. You can look for the market reports there, and you can get any report for the whole entire state. They're open. But for our local market, hhrealtor.com, and you can see those market reports as well, and the specific market reports by Hilton Head or Bluffton or Hardyville. And then we even have market reports by neighborhoods. So your Sea Pines, your Indigo Run, your Belfair, Berkeley, those are all there, and you're welcome to go and look at those.
Great, thank you. Kay's asking, has the lack of inventory on the island changed real estate in Bluffton?
Sure. So it just is moving. It's just kind of trending in different ways. Certainly people are at different price points and different lifestyles that they want. So it's a matter of where people are choosing, but the market certainly has changed. I could tell you For overall, for the end of year market reports at the end of 21, this is kind of the snapshot of the year end. In Bluffton, the sales were up 9.8%. In Hilton Head, sales were at single family homes actually were down compared to 20 by 6.2%, but condos and villas were up by 8.5%. And out in Hardyville, the market was showing a increase of 11.3% compared to 20. So you can see it's a little bit all over, and price point is so different. When you look at Bluffton, we ended the year with a median price point at $385,115. On Hilton Head Island, a single family home, we ended the year at $799,950. So quite a bit of difference there in price point as well.
Gene, thank you. Wealth of information, and I'm
Great.
sure our listeners enjoyed and got a lot out of your presentation today, and it's always good to have you with us.
Great. Thanks very much. Be sure to use a realtor. Thanks again.
All right. That was Gene Beck. Well, it's almost time to get our plat on, and 39 days, it's hard to believe, 39 days until the RBC Heritage presented by Boeing. And here to talk about that and what to expect this year is our good friend, the tournament director and the president of the Heritage Classic Foundation, Steve Wilmot. Steve, good morning, and good to see your smiling face in your office.
Well, thank you. It's going to be a tough act to follow there, Gene. Thanks a lot. But as always, Gene, you do an outstanding job with your presentations, and it was great information again. But Bill, I commend you and your team for continuing these power hours, and from Mr. Murphy to Dr. Kelly as well as Gene. It was so informative and good things. And I do want to give a little extra shout out to Dr. Kelly. She, along with Hilton Head Healthcare, regional healthcare over the last couple of years, has really advised and guided us through some difficult times. And always nice to hear the reports. It's great to hear that things are trending the way they are. And again, it's been an interesting time for us. But one other thing right now, too, is a little shout out to Long Cove, this Darius Rucker Invitational. It's wonderful women's sports, women's golf. It's incredible for this community. Long Cove has done an outstanding job, from Bob Patton's leadership to their volunteers. And it's great for them, and it's great for this community, and it's exciting to see. And be sure to check it out on TV if you can't get out there. But that leads into a television event that happens in a matter of 41 days. But it's an exciting time too for this community. And I did have the pleasure of I spoke to Bill earlier, which is always a pleasure this week, about a PowerPoint presentation and kind of going through some things about the foundation. And I realized the best thing to do is talk about the excitement. It's go time, but it's a great time for us, and really talk about what's happening, where we are, and where we're going to be here in a month. But with that, knowing how many people are on here on this call today too, and I want to thank all the support. I want to thank this community. I thank the town, the chamber, and all from our volunteers, the patience, the understanding, and the continuing support for us to be able to put this show back on. And we're back. We're excited about things. It's going to be an exciting week for everybody. As you can tell, the buzz is in the community, which I'm fortunate to be a part of. And this isn't just mine or the foundation's event. It's truly the community, the Low Country in the state of South Carolina. And in mentioning each and every one of those shareholders, they're all a big part of this, and we couldn't do it without them. But just to kind of touch on a couple things, this past week on Monday, we happened to have we had our media / sponsor day. We had a 8:30 shotgun with our media. We had a program with our sponsors, which is many of you that are probably on this phone too. From the hoteliers to the restaurateurs to the caterers to the real estate companies. We have many different partners, the banks. But then we had a program for the sponsors. And then when the when the media was over, when the media shotgun golf was over, we had a shotgun start for all of our sponsors, and then we had a program for the media. But what was exciting about this too was the energy, the excitement, the buzz. We haven't been together in a few years, and just like here, it's nice to be. It's in this case, it's nice to be viewed and not seen, but there's nothing better than being seen and not viewed. And it was nice to have everyone together as they were on Monday in all aspects, because we had some volunteers there as well too, and everyone's truly excited about April. It's been extraordinary times for all of us in all of our businesses, and including ours. It happens to be a 1 week out of the year, but it is truly 53 weeks, if not 13 months out of the year effort. And I thank so many, including the incredible staff I have, but also the trustees and the leadership that we have from our officers and the trustees, but also our volunteers. I mean, this community is about community and giving back. And we have 1,200 strong that have been meeting regularly, gearing up and getting ready for things in April. But, one thing too is we all have, we've learned a lot about ourselves over the last couple of years too. And to think of us being canceled in 20 and then being rescheduled in June of 20, and then having with no spectators, and then being limited capacity in 21, getting back to full capacity or full build out. It's been an interesting couple of years, and we realized a lot from the foundation and the tournament staff that things that we did do 5 years ago, let alone last year, might have been right, but it's not right necessarily now. And there's some things that we looked at going, why the heck do we do that? And we've eliminated them. Or why haven't we done this? And let's do that. So when I mentioned full capacity, one thing that we did learn over the years too is full capacity is not necessarily a good thing in a way. And when I say that is I look back at 2019, and for you that remember Saturday of 2019, we couldn't have gotten another person out on the golf course. And as it was exciting and it was an incredible time, it was also, there were some logistical and some operational challenges that we had. And so we're looking in what we've learned from 2021 and getting to this year, that our full capacity is a number lower than where we were in 2019. And we're monitoring our tickets closer. We are truly in a situation which I'm going to share with you today, really before it's even announced. But we're sold out of all of our shared hospitality. That being the Calabogie Club, our Docks Barbecue on 15, along with our Lighthouse Club. Our shared hospitality is no longer available, and so we do have Clubhouse. We have a limit on Clubhouse tickets this year. We're trying to, what we've learned over the last couple of years is really the added value, the enhanced experience, and less being maybe a better, but so it's an exciting time. Staff's done an incredible job, but the excitement's there. I mean, this community, as Jane just mentioned, has changed too. So there's a lot of new interest and new vibe from people going, geez, never been there, want to be a part of something special. Derek Payton, our Vice President of Sales and Marketing, and his team has done an incredible job, along with Angela McSwain, who's our Marketing Director. And we continue to, we have sponsorship opportunities, but the only thing available right now are Clubhouse and grounds tickets. And I would suggest jumping on that if you're truly interested. But more than anything, please understand this community supports us in so many different ways. From the rental companies that help house our sponsors and our players, to the hotels, to the restaurants, to the entire community. You're all part of the success of this event, and if we're successful, we can certainly then continue to do what we do, and that's to give back to charity. And we were fortunate enough with some the last couple of years of kind of stepping back a little bit with our charitable matching dollars, that we have been able to get back to our 15% matching program. We want to get back to where we were a few years ago of giving excess of $3 million or so back to charity. And that's why we do what we do and why the volunteers do what they do too. And if we had to give $1 an hour to the volunteers for their time and effort, we give nothing to charity. So it's truly it's a team effort. It's a community effort. This is exciting. I'm fortunate to be a part of something as special as this, but it's people like yourselves that make it special for me and us to continue to do what we do and be best in class and showcase this incredible community to the world. Like I said, this is go time. This is execution time. This is implementing our plans. We started the build out almost a month ago, and for those that don't come in to Seapine, sometimes you don't realize that it does take a few weeks to get to where will be in April, and but we're excited. The staff's full steam ahead, and one thing too, because we talk community. One thing about the foundation this year is each year the Heritage Classic Foundation selects a tournament chairman for our to be basically the figurehead of the tournament for the year. Simon Fraser is the chairman of the foundation throughout the course of the year. But we have tournament chairman, and this year we have co-tournament chairman, and they assisted us with sponsored a media day, and they'll be a part of opening ceremonies, and they're a big part of the tournament. But it's two gentlemen, and it's Stan Smith and it's Tom Riley. And ironically, or unfortunately, I'd say the reason that they co-chair this year is they'll both be stepping down after this year from the Heritage Classic Foundation. We felt it was appropriate to recognize these two gentlemen. I think you all know Stan. He is truly a true class act professional, represents this community, loves giving back, and is about giving back. And he's definitely more than a shoe. And then Tom Riley, I've learned so much from him as well, that it's he's about selling the sizzle and not the steak. And yes is the answer. What's the question? And both of these gentlemen have done so much for the community, but also for the tournament. As Stan chairs our charities committee, and Tom is our pro-am chairman. So they'll be missed. I know they're not going anywhere, but they're stepping back from their roles with the Heritage Classic Foundation. But Bill, I'm more than happy. You can see I didn't have an agenda. I kind of went off script, but I've never been known to be on a script. Again, I'm more than happy to take a couple questions. And actually, with that, I should mention, and I'm pointing the finger not to scold anybody by any means, but one thing that is the biggest undertaking that we've ever done through the tournament, and certainly in all my years and ever, is the fact that we are going, and I talked about tickets, but we are mobile tickets this year. This has been in a plan that's got started about 4 or 5 years ago, working with account manager, working with the PGA Tour, working with other tournaments, but this is not COVID related, but COVID certainly kind of pushed the envelope a little bit, or got us jump started even more. And we will be 100% with all of our tickets will be mobile this year. And so bear with us. It's the right thing. It's a good thing, as you know, out there. If you're traveling, if you're going to football games, you're going to concerts, even restaurants, things are mobile, but it's the right way. Change is tough, change is difficult, change is inevitable. And we're excited about this move, and it's going to be we're going to learn a lot from this year. It's only going to make us better for future years.
Steve, thank you. Couple questions. The first question is, what's the best way to go about getting tickets? Where should someone who is interested?
Absolutely, yeah. rbcheritage.com, and you can walk through. And there's also, the staff's done an incredible job in spelling out how the digital process works, and ordering the tickets, getting it into your wallet, and so forth too. So rbcheritage.com is the best way to go.
All right, thank you. And we know that the field will be stellar once again. And so I just encourage people. You heard Steve talk about how tickets are going fast, and I'd encourage you to get that done quickly. And then, Steve, as far as the digital tickets, the mobile tickets, will people be able to transfer those tickets if they wanted not to use them every day, send them to someone else?
Yeah, and that's a part of the process. And you know, you get to you can transfer them. You know, we've worked with a lot of sponsors that have a lot of tickets in their packages. Excuse me, in their packages, and they have to figure out how to mail them, send them, will call and all. And this way, you can send them your guest or customer. If they cannot accept for some reason, something comes up, they can send it back. You can send it to someone else. So there's a lot of reasons why we're doing it. And one of it is an ease factor. You know, but again, and we've thought this through. We are unique in the fact of, even with golf tournaments, but we're not an arena, and we don't have 10 entrances and 10 ways out. We are through a community, through a golf course with residential streets and all, and access. So you will be receiving a wearable once you do enter the property, but we'll be addressing this whether you're parking at Honeyhorn or you come down on site at the clubhouse or in Harbortown. But you will be receiving a wearable as well, so we can identify the fact that you didn't necessarily walk in off of a home, which we have. There's over 600 homes on the golf course, so there's plenty of access points, let alone the street. So we're working through all that too, and we've had a lot of tournaments that have assisted us, so that we've spent with as well as Ticketmaster, along with the PGA Tour, and working through this process.
All right, Steve, one more question for you, and then we'll let you go. And this is coming from Ansley. And Ansley is asking, she's saying, interested in mobile ticket move for Heritage. How was this decided, and what are the benefits?
Well, this is, again, this is a part of about a 5-6 year process, but it's also getting information that's needed. We're able to track where people are, what days they're coming, access to, so we can prepare operationally. You know, we are not we learned a couple of years, we used to only sell weekly badges, and we'd sell a badge, we didn't know who that badge might go somewhere. It was supposedly used 3.2 days a week, but we didn't know which days. And so from an operations, from a transportation to security to concessions, we weren't able to prepare. But there's also an ease to all of our sponsors too. Whether it's RBC, Boeing, or Coca-Cola, I can go on and on and on, that they get a lot of tickets, and this is a way for them to move them around and know who's using, they internally knowing who's using them and who they might be giving those to as well. So, but it is a big undertaking. It is the right thing. We're all in. We talked about, you know, ripping off one Band-Aid at a time, but we felt that you know, working with our sponsors and working with the general spectators, and you know, that was important to go ahead and let's all in, and we'll figure it out. But it's going well now. And since we had sponsor day on Monday, a lot of the sponsors now are having their individual meetings with our staff to work this through. But you know, a lot of our partners, even our local partners here and sponsors, as some of you out there too, you all experienced the Palmetto Championship at Congaree, or the PGA Championship up in Kiowa, or even USC or Clemson football, or a concert over at Enmark. And this is the direction everybody's going. And there's you know, it's a big change, but it's something that you know, we totally support and feel it's the right thing for us to do.
Well, Steve, we know just like everything else, you'll get that right, and it will bring great ease. And I look forward to the mobile ticket, and just being able to share tickets without having to go to will call, put them back in envelopes, and some of the things that went with that.
Yeah, well, no, and that's, you know, we're working with the Rotary clubs to assist us in our ticketing, and we have some other ticket directors from other PGA Tour events that will be here supporting our efforts that week. So it's we want to make sure we over deliver, and that's the plan. I have Tyler Schutz, our ticket director. He has zero other responsibilities, not even taking the trash out in his office, because he is focused 100% on this with our entire team.
Steve, we're excited. We're ready for the tournament. We know you're almost there. It's going to be a great year. And again, thank you to you for all that you and your team do to put on such an extraordinary event each and every year here on Hilton Head Island.
You know, Bill, thank you, and obviously your support, but this community support. We're blessed. I've had the opportunity to be a lot of tournaments around the country, but there's not a better place than right here in Hilton Head Island and the Low Country. And thank you.
All right, Steve Wilmot, so good to have him on. And I hope you've enjoyed today's program. There's been lots of great information shared, and we'll continue to bring this to you. And but for today, that's it. So I just ask that you please be kind, stay safe, and take care of one another. Have a great rest of your day.